Come into this place of peace and let its silence heal your spirit. Come into this place of memory and let its history warm your soul. Come into this place of prophecy and power and let its vision change your heart. As is our custom, if you'd like to come and light a candle for whatever personal or private reason, please do so while we sit in stillness listening to the prelude. Please stand in body or spirit for our chalice lighting and spoken affirmation. There was no sound. Come into this place of peace and let its silence heal your spirit. Come into this place of memory and let its history warm your soul. Come into this place of prophecy and power and let its vision change your heart. As is our custom, if you'd like to come and light a candle for we gather this hour as people of faith with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together. Dead candle. All right, it's lit. No, it's lit. Join me as together we remind ourselves of the affirmation that is the cornerstone of our free faith tradition. The words, should you need them, are in the morning program. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in freedom, and to help one another.
The opening thought. We were inspired by several of Mark Davies' services where he talked about two great peace leaders who had recently died. Desmond Tutu and Thich Nhat Hanh. In doing some research, we found a book called Great Peacemakers, True Stories from Around the World. This book is divided into 5 parts, which we originally decided would allow us to do 5 Sundays. During the final preparation of the first service, we decided we just had too much information. No one wants to sit for 1.5 hours, and paring down this information was difficult. To that end, we will be doing the last Sunday of the month for 4 more months. Then continuing next year with 5 more Sundays. We sure hope you like our smiling faces. Part 1 of the book is Choosing Nonviolence and includes 4 individuals. We are sure most of you have heard of the 2 individuals we will talk about today, Henry David Thoreau and Mahatma Gandhi. We hope you enjoy learning more about these leaders this morning. Much of the dialogue about the leaders is taken directly from the book. Please listen to the words of Lao Tzu for our practices this morning. If there is to be peace in the world, there must be peace in the nations. If there is to be peace in the nations, there must be peace in the cities. If there is to be peace in the cities, there must be peace between neighbors. If there is to be peace between neighbors, there must be peace in the home. If there is to be peace in the home, there must be peace in the heart. Join me in a moment of silence to contemplate these words.
What a wondrous love is this, oh my soul, oh my soul. What a wondrous love is this, oh my soul. What a wondrous love is this that brings my heart such bliss and takes away the pain of my soul, oh my soul. And takes away the pain of my soul. When I was sinking down, sinking down, sinking down. When I was sinking down, sinking soul.
Henry David Thoreau was an American original who lived life according to his own ideals. He openly questioned the norms of society and stood up for a life of peace and simplicity. Amid the materialism of the Industrial Revolution and the violence of war and slavery, his was one of only a few brave voices speaking up for nature, nonviolence, and individual freedom. Henry David Thoreau was born in the small town of Concord, Massachusetts, in 1817, just prior to the Transcendental Movement, which promoted such ideals as strength of character, courage, self-confidence, and independence of mind. Henry's father was a quiet pencil maker, and his mother a vivacious anti-slavery campaigner. Henry was a serious child who loved to spend countless hours exploring the woods around Concord. From his first glimpse of Walden Pond and its quiet beauty, he immediately dreamed of living there. At 16 years of age, Thoreau entered Harvard University. He showed early signs of dancing to his own drum, wearing a green coat because the authorities required a black one. After graduating from Harvard, he returned to Concord and took a teaching job, only lasting 2 weeks before resigning because he was ordered to administer corporal punishment to his students. Thoreau was close to his brother John, and his first book, A Week on the Concord and Merrimack Rivers, was about a boating expedition that he shared with John. He wrote it while living on the shores of Walden Pond. Thoreau's time at Walden Pond was an experiment in simple, natural living. He built his laboratory, a 10 by 15-foot cabin, we'd call it a tiny home now, on land owned by his friend, Ralph Waldo Emerson. Thoreau finished the cabin in 1845 and moved in on July 4th in his own Declaration of Independence. Thoreau said, "I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life, and see if I could not learn what it had to teach, and not, when I came to die, discover that I had not lived." Thoreau wanted nothing to do with typical career because to him it was a trap. It locked people into working their lives away in jobs that they did not enjoy, that did not contribute to the true betterment of humanity, and that plundered the environment only to get money to buy things they did not really need and that did not bring them lasting joy. He observed, "The mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation." Through simple living, Thoreau hypothesized that people could break out of this trap and thereby enjoy greater freedom and happiness. Thoreau, at 28, tested this hypothesis at Walden Pond, launching each day with an invigorating bath in the pond, followed by work in his garden. The vegetables he grew feeding him and providing income to cover his low expenses. Afternoons left him free to walk in the woods and intently study the environment for at least 4 hours every day, and to write, talk with visitors, or simply bask in the glory of the forest. Some individuals saw Thoreau's lifestyle as antisocial, because he found so much of ordinary conversation to be nothing more than superficial gossip. He preferred meaningful conversation with thinking individuals or solitude and reflection. His comment on his lifestyle, "I love my fate to the very core and rind." Thoreau refused to pay the poll tax, declining to support a government that was permitting the holding of slaves and the waging of the war with Mexico. He could not stand to trace the path of his dollars, till it buys a man or a musket to shoot one with. He was arrested and accepted his punishment willingly. He spent one night in jail and learned that his mother and aunts had paid his bond without his consent. Thoreau spent 2 years, 2 months, and 2 days living his experiment at Walden Pond. The major findings he reported included: to maintain oneself on this earth is not a hardship, but a pastime, if we will live simply and wisely. And if one advances confidently in the direction of his dreams and endeavors to live the life which he has imagined, he will meet with a success unexpected in common hours. After writing Walden, sharing details about his life in the woods and insights about life in general, Thoreau began giving lectures and writing essays. Of writing Walden, Thoreau shares, "I do not propose to write an ode to dejection, but to brag lustily as a rooster in the morning, standing on his roost, if only to wake up my neighbors." He extolled the joyful freedom of simple, conscious living and urged readers to simplify, simplify. Thoreau also cared about his fellow citizens and participated in important public discourse. An essay, Civil Disobedience, criticized oppressive government and praised personal freedom. He explains civil disobedience is the act of protesting an injustice by openly disobeying an unjust law and willingly accepting the consequences. This essay, which later had a profound impact on nonviolent leaders such as Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr., proclaimed, "I think that we should be men first and subjects afterward." In his personal practice, he refused to pay poll tax for the next 6 years. Thoreau was outraged when an escaped slave, Anthony Burns, was captured and returned to his owner in the state of Massachusetts, and promptly gave a lecture, Slavery in Massachusetts. He also took action by denouncing slavery in additional lectures and essays, and personally assisting escaping slaves. Thoreau died on a lovely spring morning in 1862 at the age of 44 of tuberculosis. In keeping with his love of nature, his coffin was sprinkled with forest sprigs and wildflowers, and his grave was marked by a simple stone bearing only his name and date of death. So, concluding the short life of this one-of-a-kind man, whose heartfelt wish for humanity is as relevant today as it was during his lifetime, that individuals enjoy their own versions of a good life, living simply and consciously, respecting nature and their fellow human beings, and following the deepest yearnings of their heart. We will now see a few of Thoreau's more famous quotes, followed by a song.
'Tis the gift to be simple, 'tis the gift to be free, 'tis the gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, we'll be in the valley of love and delight. 'Tis the gift to be gentle, 'tis the gift to be fair, 'tis the gift to wake and breathe the morning air, to walk every day in the path that we choose. 'Tis a gift we pray we may have and never lose. Tis the gift to be knowing, 'tis the gift to be kind, 'tis the gift to wait and hear another's mind. And when we speak our feelings, it may come out true. 'Tis a gift for me and a gift for you. 'Tis the gift to be knowing, 'tis the best gift of all, like a warm spring rain bringing beauty when it falls. And when we use this gift, we may come to believe 'tis better to give than it is to receive. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend, we will not be ashamed. To turn will be our delight, till by turning, we turn round right.
About Mahatma Gandhi, living deliberately. Mahatma Gandhi, an icon of nonviolence, spent more than 2,000 days in jail as he sought to end the oppression of his people. In what has been called the greatest application of the principle of peace on a political level that the world has ever seen. Gandhi guided India to independence from nearly 240 years of British rule and showed the world that monumental social change can be achieved through nonviolent resistance. He was born the fourth child of a government official and his wife in Porbandar, Gujarat, India, in 1869. His birth name, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, the man grew up to be so shy that he would run home immediately after school to avoid having to speak to anyone. In an arranged marriage, Gandhi was wed to a girl named Kastur Makanji when both were only 13 years old. To support his family, which eventually included 4 children, Gandhi decided to become an attorney. At age 18, he went to study law in London, England, where he donned a business suit and top hat and studied Western literature. He was especially impressed with Henry David Thoreau, who we just heard about, and his essay, Civil Disobedience, as well as the New Testament passage pertaining to turning the other cheek. After earning his law degree, Gandhi returned to India and began practicing law. Finding himself too shy to argue cases before a judge and a jury, he just took a job as a legal consultant of an Indian firm in South Africa. In 1893, just after arriving in South Africa, Gandhi experienced an event that would change his life forever. While riding a train in the first-class compartment, Gandhi, who in South Africa was considered colored, was ordered by a white official to move to a lower class ticket, even though Gandhi had purchased a first-class one. When he refused to move, the official literally threw him off the train. Stunned, Gandhi spent the entire night on the railway platform, groping for a solution to the discrimination. Retaliating violently, he figured, was unwise because, as he would later say, an eye for an eye only makes the whole world blind. We've all heard that. Running away, he believed, would be cowardly, though through nonviolence, the best solution was to protest the discrimination through nonviolent resistance, opposing injustice with determined nonviolent action. For the next 20 years, Gandhi exercised nonviolent resistance on behalf of his fellow Indian immigrants in South Africa. He sought not to attack government officials, but instead to reform the unfair system that they administered. Conquering his shyness, he gave rousing speeches and led protest marches against such laws as those that violated and invalidated Indian marriages and mandated registration of Indian immigrants by fingerprinting men and forcing women to stand naked before white police officers so that marks on their bodies could be recorded. Gandhi and fellow protesters proclaimed that they would go to jail before they would obey the insulting laws. Although Gandhi did go to jail many times during these protests, he also became the first colored attorney allowed to practice before South Africa's Supreme Court. On a personal level, the injustice that Gandhi saw in South Africa's laws, as well as in the Boer War and so-called Zulu rebellion, set him reflecting on how he was being unjust in his own life. Realizing the wife is not the husband's bondslave, Gandhi strove to be less domineering and more respectful towards his wife. Further, believing that social change and personal change were interlinked, Gandhi made other major adjustments in his life, including renouncing most of his material possessions, fasting regularly, and spending one day a week in silence. These changes helped Gandhi develop discipline that served him well in his quest to improve civil rights for Indian immigrants. Following the passage of the Smuts-Gandhi Settlement of 1914, which among other things abolished a tax levied against indentured immigrants, Gandhi felt drawn back to India. Upon arriving home, Gandhi realized that India was suffering oppression from both its own people and its British rulers. Indians oppressed each other through the Hindu caste system, in which a person's opportunities in life were limited through the caste in which he or she was born. Hindus born into the lowest caste, so-called untouchables, experienced severe discrimination and were confined to doing the most degrading work, such as cleaning dirty latrines for their entire lives. Moreover, the British enforced unjust laws and controlled India and its resources with an iron fist. Seeking to alleviate both types of oppression through nonviolent resistance, Gandhi said, "I do not hate the domineering Englishmen, as I refuse to hate the domineering Hindus. I seek to perform them in all the loving ways that are open to me." To reform the Hindus, despite being born into a relatively high caste, Gandhi declared that he would rather see Hinduism die than see untouchability live. He urged people to boycott temples that excluded untouchables. And he opened temples and schools, especially for them. As for the British, although Indians outnumbered them 4,000 to 1, and arguably could have overthrown them through violent means, Gandhi was determined to free India through nonviolent resistance. Unfortunately, the British did not always take kindly to this approach, as was evidenced in 1919, when Gandhi objected to the withdrawal of civil liberties by launching a nationwide workers' strike. In response, British troops opened fire on a peaceful gathering in Amritsar, Punjab, killing nearly 400 unarmed Indians. The troops stopped firing only because they ran out of ammunition. This tragedy strengthened Gandhi's resolve to protest such injustice. And in 1928, he called for India's complete independence from British rule within 1 year. When this goal was not reached, he launched his historic Salt March. Under British law, it was illegal for Indians to make or sell salt, a business reserved only for foreigners. In protest, in 1930, Gandhi set out with 80 followers on a march to the coast to make sea salt, declaring, "Non-cooperation with evil is as much a duty as cooperation with good." For 24 days, he walked more than 200 miles, accompanied by protesters numbering in the hundreds of thousands by the time they reached the sea at Dandi. In a historic act of civil disobedience, Gandhi picked up a handful of sea salt from the beach, breaking the law and landing him in jail without a trial. The demonstration succeeded, though, and when Gandhi was released, he and the British Viceroy of India signed the Gandhi-Irwin Pact of 1931. The pact granted immediate release to all political prisoners not convicted for violence, granted Indians living along the coast the right to make salt for consumption, and granted Indians throughout the country the right to engage in peaceful protests. India was not free yet. When World War II broke out, Britain refused to allow Indians to express their opinions about the war. Opposing the suppression, Gandhi launched a protest campaign, resulting in the imprisonment of approximately 23,000 people. Gandhi's Quit India movement resulted in the imprisonment of, among other leaders, himself and his wife, who sadly died in jail. Finally, in 1947, the Independence of India Bill passed, freeing India from nearly 240 years of British rule, but dividing it into two countries: India, mostly Hindu, and Pakistan, mostly Muslim. Seeing his homeland torn apart, Gandhi was heartbroken. Although he had worked for Hindu-Muslim unity as people migrated to their own new country, riots between Hindus and Muslims broke out, killing more than 500,000 people. Guilt-ridden that he had failed to convert his people to nonviolence, Gandhi, already almost skin and bones from previous fasts, undertook a fast for peace. He declared that unless the violence stopped, he would fast until he died. As this news spread, the violence stopped after 5 days, and he resumed eating. While communal violence ended, personal violence toward Gandhi did not, as days later, a bomb exploded in his prayer meeting. Fortunately, no one was hurt. Admirers had long regarded Gandhi as a Mahatma, a great soul. However, he rejected this title, citing his imperfections. Suspecting he might be assassinated, Gandhi said that if he died without saying one ill word toward his assassin, but instead with the name of God on his lips, only then could he be considered a Mahatma. The fateful day came in 1948, when on his way to evening prayers, 78-year-old Gandhi was shot in the chest 3 times at point-blank range. With his hands folded in a gesture of forgiveness, Gandhi slumped to the ground and murmured, "He Ram," a Hindu expression of praise to God. Nearly 1 million people attended Gandhi's funeral procession, and when his cremation flame was lit, the sea of mourners cried out, "Gandhi is immortal." Perhaps, in a sense, they were right. To this day, Gandhi is revered in India as the father of the nation, and across the globe as one of the greatest teachers of nonviolent resistance the world has ever seen. See now some of the words of Mahatma Gandhi, followed by a song.
dedicated to all spiritual activists, truth seekers, and peaceful warriors worldwide.
I regard myself as a soldier, though a soldier of peace.
Once upon a time, not long ago, there was a boy who would grow and become a great soul. He lived in India, and his name was Gandhi. He believed in human rights, and he fought for equality. He felt so strongly that he trained himself, cause he realized first he'd have to change himself. He changed his clothes and decided to walk. Some days he practiced silence and refused to talk. When he was young, he studied to be a lawyer, and then he became a great spiritual warrior. He read from the scriptures of every religion, came to the realization that we're all God's children. Because he understood that we're all equal, he became a spokesman for the people, a karma yogi devoted to service, to spread truth and peace was his purpose. You gotta be the change that you wanna see in the world. Be the change, just like Gandhi. Be the change that you wanna see in the world, just like Gandhi. Gandhi dedicated his life to the cause, even when it meant breaking unjust laws. He often faced prison and incarceration, but that only strengthened his determination. He said he would make every sacrifice, but that he would never kill or take a life. He used his heart instead of his fist, and he taught non-violence as the way to resist. A peaceful soldier who used his mind to fight for the rights of humankind, but not just people, animals too. In his basic teaching, God is truth. He joined Muslims, Sikhs, and Hindus, Christians, Buddhists, Jains, and Jews. All the many paths that lead into the light that shines bright inside of me and you. You gotta be the change that you wanna see in the world. Be the change, just like Gandhi. Be the change that you wanna see in the world, just like Gandhi. Be the change that you wanna see in the world. Be the change, just like Gandhi. Be the change that you wanna see in the world, just like Gandhi. Gandhi taught an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind, and it takes more strength and faith to be kind. With that in mind, Gandhi took a stand against the foreign occupation of his land. When things got violent, Gandhi would fast, not eating for days until the riots would pass. But the biggest event that made the British halt is when Gandhi G decided to harvest salt. The British Empire installed a salt tax, and stealing salt was an unlawful act. So Gandhi and his peeps took to the streets, 10,000 deep, they marched to the beach. But when they arrived, they were beaten with clubs, but they didn't fight back, instead they chose love. The foreign military realized they were wrong and eventually decided to go back home. You see, Gandhi G was a very great leader, but before all that, he was shy and meager. As a young child, he was just like you and me before he became Mahatma Gandhi. The word Mahatma, it means great soul, and it's inside of us just waiting to unfold. If you follow your heart and act real bold, next time it'll be your story that's told. You gotta be the change that you wanna see in the world. Be the change, just like Gandhi. Be the change that you wanna see in the world, just like Gandhi. Be the change that you wanna see in the world. Be the change, just like Gandhi. Be the change that you wanna see in the world, just like Gandhi. Be the change that you wanna see in the world. Be the change, just like Gandhi. Be the change that you wanna see in the world, just like Gandhi. Be the change that you wanna see in the world. Be the change, just like Gandhi. Be the change that you wanna see in the world, just like Gandhi.
The offering is a sacrament of the free church. It is supported by the voluntary generosity of all who join with us. The offering will now be given and received in grateful appreciation of our shared hopes and values. The bowl awaits, or you may donate online. I invite you to stand in body or spirit for the benediction and extinguishing our chalice. Go in peace. Live simply, gently at home in yourselves. Act justly. Speak justly. Remember the depth of your own compassion. Forget not your power in the days of your powerlessness. Do not desire to be wealthier than your peers, and stint not your hand of charity. Practice forbearance. Speak the truth or speak not. Take care of yourselves as bodies, for you are a good gift. Crave peace for all people in the world, beginning with yourselves, and go as you go with the dream of that peace alive in your heart. Please say the words with me to extinguish our chalice. Should you need them, they are in the morning program. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. While I blow out the candle.